The Egyptians' geometry is enigmatic to say the least. Modern mathematicians were puzzled for the longest time over their volume for a truncated pyramid. They thought it took the calculus to solve for this formula. But I've seen some mathematicians who show that the Egyptians could have solved it. The Egyptians' calculation also betters the Babylonian calculation of pi. The Babylonians just inscribed a hexagon, which each side is equal to the radius of a circle. Here the circumference, perimeter is 6 sides. Divide by the diameter, which is 2 to get 3. Archaeologists actually found another tablet with the value of pi is 3.125. But the Egyptian value for pi still beats this at 3.1605. But we don't know how they came up with these values. The Egyptian and Babylonian geometry appears to be based on the Pythagorean triples. The Greeks advanced beyond them with the simple straight edge and compass constructions. As the famous Democritus quote says, "No one surpasses me in the construction of lines and proofs, not even the rope stretchers among the Egyptians." Mentioning rope stretchers indicates the Egyptian Pythagorean 3/4/5 triple. The Egyptians used 3/4/5 Pythagorean triple as their way to make a precise right angle. I pointed out above the mathematics of making a smooth surface using an isosceles triangle. The Egyptians and the Babylonians didn't have that. They had the mathematics of the Pythagorean triples. With this level of mathematics, the Egyptian fractions and the 3/4/5 triangle, the Egyptians built their Great Pyramids. The Babylonians went far beyond the Egyptians in Pythagorean triples. They also had the largest number base in human history, base 60. The reasons why they chose base 60 is lost to history. But because of it, they were able to calculate far more Pythagorean triples. Archaeologists have dug up many Babylonian multiplication tables. The Babylonians appear to have experimented with many number bases, not just base 60. The problem was multiplication. The larger the number base, the more entries in the multiplication table. For base 60, the number of entries is 1711. They wanted to solve multiplication problems just by making a multiplication table off to infinity. Just like one is tempted to solve the problem of expressing each succeeding number off to infinity by making a special symbol for each number. Imagine a numerical alphabet with a distinct symbol for each number off to infinity. Similarly, the Babylonians hoped to solve multiplication just by making a table. But as indicated above, the number of entries becomes prohibitive with a larger number base. So, they have to calculate multiplications. They did so by means of geometric algebra. Kind of like how one can make a geometric diagram of a plus b, ab, and this is shown in Book 2 of Euclid's Elements. Mathematicians, starting with the Babylonians, would represent algebraic expressions like a plus b, ab, as a square with two crisscrossing lines, and they'd read a plus b, ab, right off the geometric diagram. With this geometric algebra, they would find a formula that allowed them to solve far more Pythagorean triples. They could solve the Pythagorean theorem, and quadratic equations. The Babylonians would avoid non-terminating fractions by multiplying by the reciprocal of a base 60 number. John Stilwell argues in his The Story of Proof that a lot of the major progress in mathematics is about overcoming infinity. That mathematicians came up with deductive logic to overcome infinity. I agree to a certain extent. But mathematicians overcome conceptual barriers with deductive logic that are finite as well. Using Euclidean geometry examples, they figure out how to draw a straight line not on a single point. Or, they figure out opposite angles are equal not by overcoming infinity. I explain all this at the beginning of my Gospel of Truth. Every mathematical concept is like overcoming our flat Earth perspective. Solving from our flat Earth perspective leads to incomplete and awkward and I'd say even anthropocentric concepts. We see this in the growth of the number concept. We chose 10 as our number base because of our 10 fingers, not because of some logical reason. On the other hand, we have to choose a finite number base because of our finite human perspective. And, like the Philip Morrison speech described at the beginning of this Gospel of Truth, mathematics is the progress from our human flat Earth perspective. I like this quote below. To my mind, the most successful programs of unification always came about when there was some urgent question to be answered. In most cases, the urgent question was that something seemed to be wrong in the present understanding, and the correct answer then turned out to be that the only way to get it right was to say that this effect and that effect cancelled, and the only way to make them cancel was to put them into one big theory together and show that they were the same force. Gerald T. Hoft through Crease and Man's The Second Creation, page 412. I show this process from Australopithecines on in my Gospel of Truth. Part of this progression is going from magic and mythology to mathematics. I've noted Sir James Fraser's The Golden Bough before. In it he shows a lot about magic. He shows a lot of folktale examples of magic. Magic is like what you see in the movies, with the guy who wants to inflict pain on his enemies. So, he makes a doll that looks like his enemy and sticks needles in it. There's examples in the Old Testament that prove it. Numbers chapter 21 verse 9. So Moses made a bronze snake and put it up on a pole. Then when anyone was bitten by a snake and looked at the bronze snake, they lived. The whole of Ezekiel 24 to 114 is an example of the magic Sir James Fraser is talking about. 2 Kings 20 to 111. Prepare a poultice of fig, they applied it to the boil, and he recovered. Then Hezekiah asks what the Lord's sign will be, and his prophet replies, shall the shadow go forward 10 steps, or shall it go back 10 steps? 10. It is a simple matter for the shadow to go forward 10 steps, said Hezekiah. Rather, have it go back 10 steps. 11. Then the prophet Isaiah called on the Lord, and the Lord made the shadow go back the 10 steps it had gone down on the stairway of Ahaz. Making nature go backwards is also found in Joshua chapter 10 verse 13. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. This passage gives scriptural authority to a book not even in the Old Testament, Jasher. In Jasher 9-8 says Abraham's father worshipped 12 gods, figurines, which were a personification of the 12 zodiacal constellations. A theme we'll see over and over again in this Gospel of Truth. Another theme that can be found in 2 Kings 20 to 111, I will add 15 years to your life. This adding to your life, and really time you get to rule, is a theme in Sir James Fraser's The Golden Bough. You get to be king for a day, for a period, and then they kill you and put someone else in as a king for the day.